So we're gonna track towards a little bit more specifics. So we've done this kind of big picture thing, which has been good, and we're gonna start tracking to a little bit more discipline and specifics and a little bit of statistics, and maybe just so that by the end of the day we can get to that real practical application piece. That's the goal. Let's be very practical. Although we've been pretty practical so far, so some of the stuff has been good. I saw this yesterday and I thought it was hilarious. I actually typed in hipster and scripture, and this came up and I started laughing and I was like, what is that? So I clicked it, and it was from a poster for a Bible study at a non-denom church. And it's at a coffee house, and I thought that is hilarious that they call it that. So they're kind of making fun of themselves. And who do you think they're appealing to? They're appealing to a young adult population, kind of that post-high school thing. And this is what I read about it was, there was a huge disclaimer that came with the content. So the hipster scripture Bible study was like, if you've never read your Bible, that's okay, just come out because we're just going to talk. In fact, if you don't have a Bible, that's okay. We're just going to be together and have coffee. But if you have a Bible, that's great. And sometimes we'll talk about it. And I was like, that is stupid. Like, that is stupid. Here's what's funny. This is a brilliant definition of really the seed of youth ministry in the Catholic Church. It really is. Because there was such a rebellion from parochial, school-focused education that came out of the Confraternity for Christian Doctrine in the 80s, kind of saying, hey, what is youth ministry? What is this going to look like? We don't necessarily have our school the way we once did, but we still want to gather young people like we talked about before. What does this need to look like? Well, it looks like a school model, and that's because it's what we know. Okay, it's because it's what we know. We know to gather young people in that way. Well, there was kind of this youth ministry rebellion against that. And it looked a lot like that. It was like, wait a minute. Here it comes. Play and pray. Let's play and pray. And that term really started to define youth ministry in the church. Let's gather very playfully and then make sure we pray. Because what's most important is that we build this community among kids first. And then we'll sort of insert content where we can. Well, the early 90s rolled around. JP2 came to Colorado at World Youth Day, and a lot changed. He really laid it out. He really laid us out. His message at World Youth Day was not shish boom ba, ring ring rah. It was like, do this better. And I think it wasn't an assessment of what we were doing as much as we can all do this better. And he used words like encounter and blessed sacrament and a devotion to Mary and a real demand to emphasize the discipleship. The road to Emmaus became the real narrative for youth ministry. We walk on the road with our young people. We listen and we reveal Scripture. We guide them towards the sacraments. We send them running to Jerusalem. Okay, that language, that Luke 24 language. That really became the mandate for youth ministry. And this became a joke. Well, here's the thing. One-eared Mickey, remember the image? That was our response to that. One-eared Mickey really became this idea of we will intentionally gather young people really well over here. Okay? This will be our intentional young person thing. You are too old. Stay over there. Okay? Because this is our thing, and I have a ponytail and sandals, and I play guitar, and it's awesome. And I am more awesome than you are. Okay? That really stinks. And a generation of young people, including myself, have kind of come through that thing. And it's still, don't kid yourself, like it's still very prevalent in the church. Very, very prevalent. It has different names. It looks different. But there's still this sort of mutual exclusivity. Well, what happened? National Study of Youth and Religion, remember all those books I put up there? Said, you're stupid. Because where's mom and dad? Where's mom and dad? So you really think that this thing you call youth ministry, which is really just triage, is replacing mom and dad? That's sinful. And by that I mean sinful. Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. To treat young people as a separate community outside the context of their faith community. It's not okay. Look at this image for a minute. For those of you in the back, I apologize, but you sat in the back, so it's on you. Okay? This is not a one-eared Mickey. So this is very different. What you see in this circle is all the components. Okay? And then you got this kind of Maltese cross going on here. And then you see these specific 4 things that the new Directory for Catechesis emphasizes bishops: social, spiritual, service, and formative formation. So there's all these words. And at the center is what? It's Christ. The center is Christ. Okay? This becomes the youth community. This is just like a zeroing in, okay? By the way, before I forget, I apologize. A couple of things. 1, video of this presentation will be made public. 2, so are the slides. You can have everything. I don't care. Take it, do whatever you want with it. Doesn't matter to me. So that if you didn't write something down, knock yourself out. Although if you're taking notes, that's hilarious. I'd love to see them. Okay. So this is Christ. So we're zeroed in, okay? That's different than Mickey, isn't it? That's different, because we're really taking the components and all this language that the bishops are loading us up with all these resources and saying, do this. Okay, but here's the thing about this picture. This image now is really just within. Uh-oh, get ready. This is exactly what the bishop just talked about. Exactly what he talked about. Your youth community is nestled inside parish community. That's okay. Community within community is okay. That's not a bad thing. Many of you have that already in your parish life. So you have a men's group or a women's group or a Bible study or a small Christian community or whatever that is. Some of you still meet in your Renew groups from the 80s. That's very real. Okay, that happens. Okay, that's not a bad thing. Peter, Paul, church. It still worked. Okay, it still worked. Okay, but what happens? The breakdown is now what? Well, you're inside of not only parish, a regional community. That might be deanery, that might be vicariate. It's all different. It sounds like you guys have vicariates, okay? And then that is inside of this thing called diocesan community. I apologize if you can't see that. Oh, and then that is inside of this thing called state community or regional community. Okay, by regional I mean, I shouldn't have said that because that's going to confuse you. The bishops are broken up into regions just like we are. So states sometimes are their own region. New York. My region, Region 12, the bishops of Region 12. Alaska, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Washington. Yeah, we get together a lot. Give me a break. In fact, this is a joke. Next week after this coming one, we had a regional conference and it just got canceled. Because everyone was like, I can't. We can't come. Alaska, Fairbanks, everybody go like this with their hand like this. Take your hand like this, point your finger down like this. That's Alaska. Anchorage, Juneau, Diocese of Fairbanks. Stupid. Okay. So that's the state community. And then there's this thing called national community, and of course this could keep going, right? Right? We love Pope Francis. We love him. We're like, he's like Uncle Pope, right? He's Uncle Francis. We do. We speak about our Pope now in a way, this is unique to us. This is a cool modern Catholic thing. We speak about our Pope now like, oh yeah, it's like Bishop, Father, Pope. We get on. It's great. Argentina, whatever. It's close. We do. As opposed to Pope, right? That's not, guys, you throw the guy on the cover of Time magazine, which we'll talk about later, and everything changes in the United States of America. You know what's amazing? I don't want to go off on this too much, but it is pretty cool. Think about the healing in the United States of America, abuse crisis, that has given men. Priests, walking through the airport in their collar. The difference is staggering. Strangers, atheists, non-believers. Hey, Francis is pretty cool. And then they walk off. I know, I've actually not met a priest where that sort of experience didn't happen yet to them. Like, hey, what do you think of the new Pope? He's pretty cool. Cool. And they walk off, all right? That's evangelization. Like, it's happening, right? Oh my gosh, we could go on forever. This image makes us nervous because a lot of times we're pretty good at our thing. I'm a multi-parish minister. I wrote the training for the National Federation for Catholic Youth Ministry on multi-parish ministry. It's really, really, really hard. You know why? Because we love to do our own thing. We love to do our own thing. We'll talk more about that at the workshop, but I just want to throw that out there. So we can embody all this stuff. And then when we say, hey, let's do this stuff together, we don't come to those meetings like, we come to them like this, and we go, my thing works good. Does your thing work good? Maybe I'll share my thing. Maybe not. Okay, and it's tense, and it's weird, and it's personality driven, right? When a pastor gets moved, it breaks apart. Guys, that's vision. That's like vision language. You know, in a business, when businesses merge, people get fired. Why do you think that is? Because it's just too much work to collaborate. It's just too much work. Well, guess what? Collaboration is part of church, and more people would do it if it was easy. It's hard, okay? Identifying the components, identifying the directives, Christ at the center, understanding a broader relationship. It's good when your youth minister gets a place in that world. When they're like, yeah, it's pretty cool that I was able to go to the National Catholic Conference of Youth Ministry. I was really affirmed about what I do in my own parish, and now I'm really charged to reach out to other communities within my vicariate to seek out their needs and also to share in resources. Like, that's modern church. And it's hard sometimes because our pastors aren't necessarily exposed to that in the same way that a lot of lay ecclesial ministers are, but it is very much a part of church. Here's why I'm dwelling on that. Because the better we understand this, the better we understand young people. Do you really think that they care about the walls of their church? The parish lines? Do you really think that that's their reality? Do you think that they care about St. Pat's and St. Francis? Because that's their friend at St. Francis, and they go to St. Pat's. Do you think that they care that they're at different churches? That that's going to define their relationship in any way regarding Christ? Really? You know, we talked about the different schools, your experience of different schools. I actually banned Letterman jackets at my multi-parish. I banned them. 9 parishes, 200-mile radius, Flathead Valley in Montana. You think sports aren't important to Montanans? Now you have to remember in Montana, one town, one school. One town, one school. That jacket wasn't just their district, it was their city. You think local, yokel, rural people don't make a big deal out of high school sports? Get over it. Okay? That is real. I had to ban them. Do you know what that's like? Do you know how hard that is? Do you know what the fruit was? Relationships. Don't let this thing divide you. Let it unite you. Do you know how profound it is spiritually to go to the cross-country meet where the kid that went to the retreat with the kid from the other school walks across and gives him a hug before the race? Do you realize how profound that is? I'll make it even more. Do you know how big of a deal it is in a rural state where Native Americans are the product and the result of racism? To have a relationship where Native American kids share in a social experience with white kids, and they've never talked to each other ever before, and before a basketball game they walk across the court and give each other high fives and hugs. They are getting looked at like they now carry a disease. Yeah. I'm not making that up. I mean, it is that level of racial tension in the state of Montana. And the kids don't. You think they care? We care. Adults are like, I can't believe he just touched that Blackfeet boy. And that kid's like, that's my friend. They don't care. Christ breaks through that stuff, right? Okay? It's the same thing here. We like our lines. Young people, right? How many people had a pen pal when you were a kid? Yeah, okay. It's kind of funny now, isn't it? Right? Globalism, this is John Allen Jr. language. Like, globalism is a joke to young people. Why wouldn't you have a relationship with a Malaysian teenager? Why wouldn't you? Like, it's so accessible, it's so easy, right? It's not like, hi, my name is Doug and I want to be your pen pal. Maybe you could send me a postcard. 6 months later, hello, my name is Hong and I like you. Do you watch television? 6 months later, yes, and I like Trix cereal. 6 months later, now I'm 15. That's not real. That's not real. That's not reality anymore. That's gone. It's gone. Globalism doesn't necessarily mean global economy, although that's part of it. It means like there isn't the lines. It's just not. And think about the impact of that. That's racial tensions in a lot of ways among young people that are kind of like, whatever. So you're different. Let's collaborate on that. That actually draws us together, not separates us apart. Not everywhere, of course. Not everywhere, of course. Okay? But where intentional relationships are part of ministry, I know that to be true. We joke about that as adults, but it's one of those rifts between our generations that we really, quite frankly, just need to get over. My young people, I brought 109 kids to the National Catholic Youth Convention, and I'm bragging right now, outright in your face, because that is crazy. Because my diocese is tiny. It's 55,000 square miles, but it's not that many people. My group was larger than the Archdiocese of New York. And I'm telling you that because Father Joe Espaillat is a good friend, and I love to rub it in his face publicly, and this is on video. Bring it on, okay? 109 Montanans going into a stadium, 24,000 Catholics. Some of them come from towns 1/4 the size of that stadium. Be very real about that. But they weren't afraid to be there. And then it gets better. They felt like they belonged. You know, they were like, oh, it's cool, Diocese of Helena, whatever, we're here. And then I love this too. They were able to really encounter it and smile and say, that was really neat, or, you know, I would do that better. And here's why I think that's cool. They were coming from youth ministry that was engaged in youth ministry that just wanted to get better. And that's hard to do, right? That image that we had up there, that's hard to do. Listen, track with the challenges for just a minute, okay? Why is youth ministry hard? Lots of reasons. You want to spend the rest of the day doing this? We can if you'd like. No flipping each other off, okay? This is real. Why is it hard? It's hard because there's a lot of elements that we put inside of it. But almost all of them end up laying on top of this thing called relationships. Remember your 5? Remember your 5? Okay, hang on to those. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Yeah, it's important to have leaders that know something about the Lord. That's important. Some of the DRE directors are like, I've been saying that for 20 years. Okay, it's true, all right? Don't just go hire Greenie undergrad, I just love the Lord, but I have no concept of theology kid, because that's not okay. There needs to be a good, healthy sense of church. You need to have that. It's important. Changing from one-eared Mickey or Lone Ranger to really understanding a leadership team, a team of people, moms and dads, that specifically help you do the ministry to youth in your parish. Whatever that is, the Bible study, the core team, the leadership team, the retreat, whatever that is, okay? And actually empowering young people towards full active involvement within faith community life. And this is one of those fruit questions. You don't always see it, right? Youth ministers, we till soil. We don't necessarily harvest, okay? We till soil. But making the language you use in your youth ministry about parish life. Parish is a place for you. Now listen, I am not going to grab the sewer lid that is confirmation and throw it on the table right now. I know that a lot of kids that get confirmed bolt. Okay? Now we can have this conversation if you want to another time, but we don't have time for it today. But what I'm going to talk about specifically is what it means to be invited and why young people stay in church. Because statistically, they're leaving. Okay? The young adults are leaving. Okay? Our bishops, this is their agenda. This is a huge agenda for bishops, is to have a conversation about where's the 20-something. Well, it comes back to great youth ministry, okay? Great youth ministry makes for great young adult ministry. That's not a tough math equation, okay? Making sure that part of their involvement is a valued understanding of your ministry is a big deal. This is big, right? Creating a safe environment. We do this now better than almost anyone in the world, but pre-2001, not so much, okay? So it's good that we have that up there. Are we engaging young people in the context of formation for this? And this is a really popular term. How many people have heard that term? Catholic identity. Well, how's the Catholic identity at your high school? How's the Catholic identity at your parish? Do kids really know what it means to be Catholic? Have you heard that term before? This is a huge, hot topic with very little definition. It's a lot like youth culture, right? We're like, yeah, it's the youth culture. It's the youth culture. I don't know what that is. Okay. Well, Catholic identity is good. Well, this kid who can't explain their relationship with Jesus is on his knees in front of a Eucharist in adoration, but he's a bully. And this kid who has every word right has no personal relationship with Jesus. So how's your Catholic identity? How do you gauge that? Were you gauging it off the vocabulary or the person's actions? Because both kind of bombed. Do you see the difference? We don't gauge it well. We don't really know what that means because we don't get to see the harvest. Life Teen has not invented the microscope yet where we go, oh, teenage heart, and you're good. Good. And then move on. We don't have that. We don't know what's in kids' hearts. We don't. You know who the most dangerous young people are to work with? Are the ones who know all the right answers. Why do you think that is? There's a lot of answers to that, right? I know if I give you all the right answers when you ask me the right questions that you're going to leave me alone. It is way more hard for me to say I don't know, and for you to look at me and say let's figure it out together and build a relationship based on that, than for me to just respond and regurgitate what you think you wanted me to say. And I remember when I was a parish youth minister, that kid that always came early and stayed late, that was more of a concern to me than the kid who ran away from home that I only saw twice per year. Because I was like, I want to make sure that you don't just know the answers, that you're actually being owned by them. Like it's transforming you. Because spiritual arrogance is every bit as dangerous as spiritual defiance. Every bit as dangerous. And we have to be careful with it as youth ministers, parents. Sometimes we love when our kids know every answer. We love it. We're like, look at my kid. First communion, they answered everything right. Woohoo, right? They stand up at confirmation and bishop says, hey, what are the gifts of the Holy Spirit? And they're like, reverence, power, wisdom, courage, right judgment, understanding, knowledge. Boom, right? That kid, okay? That might be a problem. They might know all the answers, but are those answers owning them? Like, do you really know what it means to revere the risen Lord? Are you in awe of his majesty, or do you just know how to describe it? Catholic identity, man, whew, it's important, but it's way more fragile than we think it is. It's way more fragile. What would you add to this? Major challenges in youth ministry. Careful, I'm going to put a time limit on this. What would you add to this? Sports schedules. Or what would we just call it? Youth activities, right? I would add mom and dad to this.
Disregard for timeliness.
Time is just kind of relative, right? It's like, Tuesday, is that, so Tuesday this week? Tuesday in the week? Tuesday this year, okay. I mean, yeah, it's tough. Calendaring with kids. Okay.
Just even at class time, you know.
Yep.
I can wait till 9:10 to start class, but they better be out the door at 10:30 because
Yeah.
I'm in the parking lot waiting.
Yeah, and your time is fragile. Your time is fragile. So why are you waiting, right? What else? What would you add? You bet they do. You bet they do. I'm really glad you brought that up. Young people work. Young people are part of the workforce. Yes, sir?
You already described it, but I haven't heard this word yet. Boring.
Oh, sure, sure. We have no answer for indifference, do we? I could light myself on fire and levitate and talk about the Holy Spirit, but if a kid's in the back going, nah, whatever, I have no response to that. I have no response to that. Indifference is a huge deal, isn't it? It's a huge deal. It's also lukewarmness, which, read your Bible, that's sketchy, okay? All right, what else? Yep.
I think just different personalities of kids. I mean, I have a son and daughter.
Good, we were talking about that earlier, that's right.
My daughter tells me everything, and I would look at her and say she probably will be Catholic forever and won't stray too far, hopefully. And then I have my son who tells me nothing, and I have no idea what's going on in his mind.
Yeah, time bomb.
So, yeah.
You have no idea.
I have no idea where he's going to end up in life.
That's real, isn't it?
So, yeah.
That's real. And you're in the car, and you're just like, I just wish that this was less awkward, and we could talk. I know, that's just so real. Communication, different personalities, I like the way you put that. It's true, isn't it? It's not uncommon among adults as well. Yep.
Cell phone.
Sure, distractions. Can I say that? Is that fair to say? Technological distractions, although sometimes those become assets. We can talk more about that later. But yeah, yep.
They're like, I have a billion tests the next day.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah.
Jerry and I talked about this last night. Is this sort of like, sometimes it's self-imposed, but a lot of times it's imposed, the academic pressures. Academic pressures. That's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Yep.
Employment?
Yeah, working. Kids working.
No, I mean like we as employees. Part-time, like multi-parish. Yeah.
So the way that your job is structured to serve teens, that's great. I'm really glad you brought that up. Yep.
The fear that I might be rejected, persecuted, or wrong.
You bet. Among youth and adults, I would say. Young people that are fearful of being in an environment where the word Jesus is even used because they don't have a relationship with Jesus and they're afraid to be in that environment. And, let's be honest, what's the number one reason why an adult won't volunteer in a youth ministry experience? This is what they say. They're either afraid of young people or they're afraid they don't know enough. They're afraid they don't know enough. I mean, that's something, I mean, seriously, you think that's a new problem? Give me a break. I'll bet you Philip was an idiot. Yeah.
You don't have your pastor support.
This is a big deal, and we need to name it, is quite frankly, sometimes there's no pastoral support. There just isn't. It's just, and hey, let's just be honest. Let's be very frank and real. It's like that is not a priority. It's not a priority, and we're just not going to do that here. okay? Your bishop is here all day. Bring that tool home. Bring that home. I'm serious. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but bring it home and say like, well, here's the thing. It's important to the bishop, so you feeling guilty yet? Okay, I mean, like that. Honestly, you're exercising his agenda. I'm going to get in trouble now. They're going to run me out of town. All right, my flight's at 5:30. Okay, there was one more over here. Yep.
In the neighborhood where I work, in the parish and the community where I work, immigration is a big issue. We're getting huge influxes of kids from Somalia and Nepal, and they want church. They want to come, but there's the language barriers and, you know, all the things that come with those issues.
That is very real and incredible, and not necessarily unique. I'm going to call it multicultural challenges, which is a huge term. Don't kid yourself, I know that, but it's real, isn't it? Well, you're not registered. Well, I don't even know your name, so how can I serve you? Oh, hang on a minute. Well, I don't speak that language. Yeah, there's this like hospitality piece that we're really uncomfortable with, that's supposed to fly in the face of cultural differences, but it makes everyone uncomfortable. It's really hard. And how do you target people that you can't communicate with? Those are real challenges. Those are real challenges. Yep, sister.
Those unidentified issues that until you get a relationship, you're not going to know.
That's right. I like that.
And boy, that's a real impediment to any program.
Kind of the deeper stuff that's always underpinning.
It's there.
Family issues sometimes that you never really figure out.
A lot of stuff that
Yep.
the closets, the skeletons in the closet.
That's a great way to put that. And then quite frankly, it's discomforting to pry. So there's this sort of like natural limits that you put on your abilities. You're not a professional counselor, at least to my knowledge you're not. So there's a limit to what you can or can't do in that environment. That's great. I'm glad you said that. Yep.
Social circles, my friend's not doing it.
That's exactly right. That's a couple more. Yep.
How about the money that we don't have to pay a youth minister, so we have to have a volunteer?
Sure.
That's, you know.
Yeah, some of that is the limits to what the parish is actually able to do in terms of service. Some of that is priorities, which was also mentioned before. That's good. Go ahead. Yep.
I was just going to say everything everyone's talking about, but also allowing your child to have just downtime at home.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you look at another activity and go, well, that's another activity.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do it, but then you're like,
It is. That is legit. It's Sunday night. That's when the parish has youth group. But my family, that's my night. That's my night. Think about that. And then your peer group at church is upset that your kid's not there. And you're like, this is my night. This is my family night. And let's be honest, you bet. And that needs to be the priority too. So, yeah.
Sometimes the parents themselves are a problem.
You bet they are. Yeah.
Because they, you know, you're trying to get the kids out there doing community service, becoming active, showing in the many ways that you can encounter Jesus, and the parents say, well, we don't have time for that. That's stupid.
Yeah.
They don't support, you know, the ministry.
Yeah, that's real. That's totally real. So this is the big question, right? All right, let's unpack it. Here's the thing. Let's start to simplify things. What are the 4 priorities in church? Okay? I used to have a t-shirt that said, pray, break bread, wash feet. I like things to be simple. So there it is. That's the mission. We need to pray. We need to break bread. We need to wash feet. I can work with that. Well, the church has its own understanding of that too, right? Quite frankly, if you're not comfortable with this terminology and using it regularly, you need to quit your job. Okay? This is not okay. And this is very real among 1980s and early 90s youth ministry community, where we're actually sort of afraid to profess our relationship with Christ. We'll get back to some of these specifics in just a minute. This is the core. This is the core, isn't it? It's the core of who we are. We are about Him, period. Okay? We are about the Word, and I mean the Word, which is the Word that you're supposed to read and let own you. Like, not just read it, but like let it consume you. The Word made flesh. We're really good at talking about and encountering the flesh, and we forget the Word part. Right? We forget the Word part. You know what? That's been a big thing with me and my little kids. Gospel being proclaimed at Mass, kids tuning out. This isn't unique to me, right? And my thing is like, hey, this is the Word made flesh. This is a living Word. Listen to what it says, and then trying to reiterate that in my home. That's unique. That's unique to Catholics, that we actually don't emphasize necessarily the transcendence of the Word. And then there's this big guy right here, or girl I should say, bride of Christ, right here. And that's loaded, right? Some of us love to just focus here, the building, the thing. Sometimes the church gets associated specifically with catechesis, which is completely unfair. That's not what that is. But this idea of, oh, by the way, this is eternal. It's in every language in the world, right? The Catholic Church is the only precocious faith that literally says every square foot of the earth is a diocese somewhere, right? We're like, welcome to the Diocese of Fairbanks, okay, right? Like, that's crazy, right? That's Catholic language. It's like you are somewhere, right? And there is a church somewhere that serves you. Teaching that, some of that is apostolic tradition, right? Some of that is like, look where we came from. Look at who we are as the bride. This is a big deal, okay? Especially when church shopping becomes a part of the reality of families. Especially when youth ministries, I should be careful here, especially when youth ministries encounter parachurch ministries. This is a huge deal. If Young Life or Youth with a Mission is a really popular ministry in your region, one of the things that really separates the Catholic Church from parachurch youth ministries is the fact that we are a church. Let me say that again. It means that if I evangelize as a youth minister a non-Catholic kid, I am not saying, just go work it out. I am inviting them to a physical place that is eternal. That's our language, by the way. That no matter where they are the rest of their life, that thing, that church thing, is there for them. Right? How many people have been to Mass in a language that they don't speak? It might be the most profoundly spiritual thing you can do. Because you are like, I was in the Czech Republic, and we were at a Czech Mass, and I was with a group of kids, and they were dying. They could not wipe the smile off their face, because we were lost, right? In fact, when they started to say the Our Father, we're like, oh, we're golden. And then they finished like 30 seconds before all the Americans speaking English, and we're like, crap, right? But it was still the Word. And it was still the body and the blood, and you think they didn't get it? Huge deal, right? So this is a thing. This is a big thing for us, especially a young generation that understands globalism in a way that we don't. This is forever. And then there's this guy, and this is where we get nervous. This is where we only associate that with justice and service. Well, that just means serving the poor. Well, Paul VI said, evangelization is the church's deepest identity. Let me say that again. Her deepest identity. And that's the fodder for the language of the new evangelization that blessed soon-to-be Saint JP2 and Benedict and now Francis emphasize. Let me say it again. Her deepest identity. So, how you doing on that? How you doing with that? We love the Eucharist. And rightfully so, right? But if it's not translating to the mission, which is serve the poor, but it's also make disciples of all nations, how are we doing with that? Okay, so these four are hard. Okay? They're hard. Okay? Well, Jesus Christ is at the center, right? And when we work with adolescents in the context of framework, we need to be talking about the Word specifically. We already talked about this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. And when we talk about the church, we need to be doing both catechetical approach and also what? And this is a word we all need to know, Catholics. Fellowship. Remember that? Remember that from this morning? How's that house going? How are you inviting people into your house? How's it look? Did you keep it clean? So you're like, not so much. I have 5 kids, man. Don't kid yourself. If you guys were coming over to my house, I'd be like, 24-hour notice, please? Right? Okay? Right? How's that going? How's fellowship going for you? Is it a welcoming place? Right? Look at the way this lays out. Church, which also means magisterium in a lot of ways. We're not going to talk about that right now. It's both a learned environment and it's a social environment. It's both a learned environment and it's a social environment. Get ready for it. This is where the classroom model has been breaking down. Let me say that again. This is where the classroom model breaks down. It's not because the information isn't important. It's because the environment fails. Let me say that again. It's not because the information isn't important. It's because the environment fails. You can do great catechesis in a great, welcoming environment. Friends, it is harder. It's harder to do that, but it's necessary. I know you're comfortable with chairs. I know you are. I know that that's a comfortable thing. But you have to push yourself to understand that catechesis's value gets lost when fellowship is ignored. It gets lost. I no longer feel welcome. Let me say something that sounds blasphemous, and it's absolutely true. So be careful. If you need reconciliation at lunch, okay, all right. Young people today seek community before Christ. Let me just be really candid with you, right? Tell me I'm wrong. If they don't have friends coming to the thing, they don't care, right? It's not that much different for adults. We think it is, but it's not. We don't just march and be like, I'm going to see the thing because the thing will transform me. We're like, are you going? Okay, so it's not that much different. But I'm telling you right now, if that community piece isn't a priority, then your content piece over here is going to fail. Does that mean play and pray only? No, we already talked about that this morning. We can't just do play and pray, okay? We need to have good content. But it means that if we are not emphasizing this piece right here, this fellowship community piece, this welcoming committee of young people within the context of our youth ministries, right? Within this, at my parish, there's always 2 lay ecclesial ministers just to shake hands and smile and ask people their names. If that's not a priority, there won't be a sense of welcome. And if you are always trying to use the actual building as the place where you do the thing, you are limiting your abilities to reach out. You just simply are. Guys, safe environment doesn't say put them in a jail cell. That's not what it says. The Virtus, I don't know what you guys use here, but the Virtus Safe Environment Program never said that people's homes and public environments were not suitable for ministry to adolescents. That was never, ever part of the language of the Dallas Charter. Ever. But it makes us nervous because we need to make sure we do it well. But I am telling you, young people are much more inclined to engage a catechetical experience in an environment that they can't predict. And your church is predictable. How many people have a space designated for young people? Okay? Did you know statistically that it makes no difference in terms of retention? Is it still important? Yes. But are we slaves to it? Here's what happens. Sometimes parish communities spend $50,000 to remodel the room that becomes the youth room, right? It's like totally hip. People walk in, they like paint their hands on the wall. It's just, 6 months later, it's just another room. So how we do ministry, just because you don't have a youth room, don't make that a priority. Is it important to have a youth room? Yeah, it's nice when you have a space that's designated for young people. But it doesn't mean that you are going to constantly conquer this evil, okay? This challenge. Because you still have to be hospitable. You still have to be creative. You still have to be welcoming. You know what I had? I had a kid who was a sexual deviant. This 7th grade kid he had the foulest mouth I have ever heard. I mean, he ate, these old 7th grade girls truly hated this kid. So what happened? The one kid keeps coming because mom and dad say he's got to be there. Where do the girls go? Home. They don't want to be there anymore because they're not welcomed. Right? Okay, so I go to the kid and I'm like, listen, you need to change your language. Obviously there was more going on at home, right? Okay, so I'm talking to the kid and I'm like, hey, here's the thing. This is not appropriate, certainly not an appropriate way to talk to young ladies, but it's not an appropriate way to talk to me either. Kid struggles. I make the kid bolt. I'm like, well, you're not welcome anymore. And we're going to talk about some counseling. We're going to talk about what we can do to help you out. Girls come back, okay? And they're happy. Kid's not around anymore. Okay, kid calls me 6 months later. It's the end of the semester of his 7th grade year, and he's like, can I come back to youth group? At the time, youth group, right? And I said, well, let's talk. You going to change your language? He goes, yeah. I said, really? He said, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize how many people I had hurt. Okay, church moment. Church moment, what's my job now? Okay, let's talk. Where do you think I put that kid that next Wednesday? Hospitality table. And every kid that walked in, he greeted. And the girls that he had spoken to inappropriately, he apologized to. How do you think that community was after that? Lay it all on the table, right? This kid, I don't know if he ever went to confession, but he certainly confessed to those kids. I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings. I apologize. Doug allowed me to come back. I just want to be a part of this community. I just wanted you to welcome me tonight. Okay, thanks. And that kid was a brat, man. Don't kid yourself, right? I did not enjoy his company. Remember we talked about this morning where you're like, people, I don't enjoy your company. That kid, okay? That kid. Not making this up. 4 years ago, email from that kid. What do you think he's doing right now? He's a youth minister in Florida. God bless that diocese, okay? And he's tracking. You talk about seeing the fruit. He's tracking. And he gets it. Now, granted, I had him all the way through high school, but like he's tracking. I mean, he's like, that was important. I destroyed community. You destroy community, and you think you're still going to be successful at catechesis? Good luck. Good luck. Kid went to school all day, and now you're doing school again. Good luck. Good luck with that. I wish you the best. It's not because the content's not important. It's because the environment is equally important. And you have to challenge yourself in that way. What does that mean? It means 100 different things. We don't have time to go through all of them, but it means welcoming people. I am so thankful that you're here. Thank you for just being here. I know you're busy. I know you have a lot going on. But I am just so thankful that you're here. If that takes 20 minutes of your 50 minutes, do it. Because if you don't assure the community first, your content is gone. It's gone. Don't waste your time, but be intentional with your time about inviting and thanking people for being there. My 6th grade teacher was the best I've ever seen at this. Every day at the end of class, he stood at the door and shook our hands as we left. Every day. Public school. Every day. Thanks for being here, Doug. I had no choice, Mr. Taguchi. I know. I know. But I really enjoyed you being here today. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you know, if we have the time, and I know that we don't, what would it be like in our parish communities as everybody left for there to be a lot more than just the pastor who's vested shaking hands? What would that be like? What would it be like to have families just shaking as many hands as possible saying, I'm just really glad we got to celebrate Eucharist today? Right? Of course, they'd need to be there before Mass is over to catch that crowd, right? But think of the prolific gift that would be. What if there was? What if my family of 7 was at the door and Grandma's bolting, okay? And before she leaves, I go to shake her hand and I'm like, I just wanted to say, it was my pleasure to get to listen to the Word and to break open the body and the blood with you today. And I just hope you have a really good Sunday. What was your name again? Elsa? Elsa, I just want to say I look forward to seeing you next week. Are you kidding me? And that was so hard. That is bogus, friends. We are church. That is bogus. The content, the 8 components are the 4, okay? And articulating them, physically articulating them, hey, if we're not doing justice and service, we're not doing the mission. Hey, if we're not evangelizing, we're not doing the mission. And saying we better do the mission is good youth ministry. And doing it in a hospitable way by calling each other out. Jesse, man, where have you been, man? I haven't seen you at Mass for like 5 weeks. I miss you. Liturgy is less when you're not there. As opposed to, I know you play hockey, but here's the thing. That doesn't go as well. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, right? Paul preached until a kid fell out of a window and died, okay? Not hospitable, okay? He heals the kid, and he's like, sorry. And then they had a meal, okay? He was learning on the job, okay? I need to shut up, and we need to have lunch, okay? Like, that's real. That's real. Because the two things, this is Paul. If Paul walked in the room, we'd all be like, oh my gosh, it's Paul. And we would be freaking out, and he would speak to us. But eventually, we would get bored. We'd be like, Paul, seriously, Jimmy John's sandwiches around the corner. Because it's equally a part of who we are as church, and we blow it off. Man, we blow it off. Here's the Catholic Church's response to the National Study of Youth and Religion. Look at this. Youth who have participated in at least one retreat, rally, conference, or congress report being significantly closer to God than non-participants that religion plays an important part in shaping their daily life, significantly more than non-participants reading the Bible alone, significantly more or more often than non-participants. So statistically, we know when we invite young people to healthy religious experiences, that everything goes better for them in their pursuit of discipleship. Okay, so let's stop arguing about it. We know that that is truth. And we also know that 71% of junior high youth and 61% of high school have never attended a religious retreat, rally, conference, or congress. Okay, there's a reason why we gather well. There's a reason why we gather well. There's a reason why those things are experienced. Remember this book? The risks of facing contemporary teenagers bear solemn testimony to the church's ineffectiveness at addressing adolescence. Youth look to the church to show them something, someone capable of turning their lives inside out and the world upside down, and most of the time we've offered them pizza. That should be on a t-shirt, although it would take a lot of talking, but what a great evangelization moment, right? Read my shirt, you should read my shirt, right? And this is true, isn't it? Now listen, the video that Kathleen showed at the beginning of the day, it's really important. And I'm going to do something this afternoon too. You're going to hear words like programming and events. Now be careful with those words. I am not going to tell you, no more programming, no more events, just be. I'm not going to do that, okay? But I am going to say, redefine them. You need to redefine them. Because it's okay to say, this is our religious education programming. This is our youth ministry programming. Those are okay things to say. But you need to redefine what those things mean by making them inclusive, intentional, about authentic discipleship and genuine Christian lifestyle. And not just pizza. Well, we were in the classroom and I gave them pizza and then I lectured them on abortion and they all ignored me. Failure. I'm like, yes, it was a failure because you didn't understand the moment. Okay? You didn't understand that it's not just kick them the pie and then preach on the topic. It's inclusive, intentional fellowship. Is abortion an important topic to talk to young people about? Yes. Is there a way to do that in an environment that moves hearts? Yes. Are you going to pull it off in 45 minutes? Probably not. Probably not. Okay? So when you think about adolescents and how they respond well to topical discussion, are you thinking about it in the context of healthy fellowship and catechesis to enunciate the mission? That's the challenge. It's not just pizza. It's not just pizza. It's not just sit in the comfy seat. Gather young people well. Are events bad? No, they're not bad. Events gather young people well. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. They're what? Kids are busy. They're busy. It's one more thing. Here's an empirical truth that I want you to know. I talked about this last night at dinner. Quality, consistent faith formation will trump all things. Listen, let me say that again. Quality, consistent faith formation will trump. I have too many stories of varsity quarterbacks quitting the team to go to the thing. I have too many of them. So you need to just buy in right now. Listen, that doesn't mean that the first time you do the thing that it's going to be the most overwhelming success you've ever had. And if you're going to gauge on that, then you're a failure. You're going to fail. Quality, consistent faith formation will blow your mind. And who else? It'll blow the adolescent mind. Because that thing is there. And I know that I can engage it, and it has value. What we're going to talk about in the afternoon is making sure that young people know that it has value. You can invite and invite and invite until you're blue in the face, and sometimes young people just will not track. They will not track with that thing being important to them. How's your middle school ministry going? How's that going? How's that going with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders? How are you doing with that? If you think that just grabbing a hold of a high school kid should be the priority of your faith formation, you are heavily mistaken. Because if the quality, consistent faith formation that you so desperately want to build isn't being seeded in the young adolescent's heart, why would it ever be a priority to them tomorrow when they're a sophomore? Ever. Why would it even be on their radar? Oh, no, we're going to do parochial education here, but then when you get in high school, it's like flowers blooming in the springtime. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Young adolescent ministry, I'm telling you right now, if a youth minister got hired today and they were in charge of 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 9th through 12th grade, this would be my professional advice to them, and I'm not making this up. Pastors, write this down. I would say to them, 70% of your resources should go into young adolescents. 70%, because those high school kids are not your kids. They're not your kids. They're not going to track with you. There's going to be a 3-year buffer of you building a relationship with those kids. And if you blow off 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that are high school kids tomorrow, you will never build anything that lasts. I am telling you, it's got to be a priority. Yeah.
That's why I feel sometimes it's almost too late in a certain regard.
Sometimes, but the Holy Spirit works.
But I mean, that's where I feel that crunch. I've got one in middle school, one in high school, but yeah, I could have gotten them back.
It's hard, but you have to remember sacraments are real and they last in eternity, and the Holy Spirit works. So you can never feel guilty about those things. You're not allowed, especially as a parent. I'm a parent. I'm speaking to you as a parent. I'm telling you right now, when my kid, one of my 5, goes off the deep end, because I know what's going to happen, because that's what the Lord does to us, okay? I have to trust that that chrism that was on her head and that the Eucharist that was in her heart is real and it's converting her. I have to believe that, okay? But the practical side of how we serve young people, man, we blow that off a lot, don't we? We blow it off a lot. Remember these things, right? This is the word. This is Benedict's word. He loves this word. My bishop loves this word. Francis preaches this word constantly. It's about the encounter, which means an encounter. I encountered Christ at the thing. So if your thing is not Christ-centered, or if you're not an authentic witness of Christ, why are you doing the thing in the first place? Why are you even doing it? Oh, we do the pie thing because we've always done the pie thing, and like a ton of kids come. It's awesome, except that there's no Christ. It doesn't no hearts are being converted, right? So there has to be kind of a balance. We'll talk more about that in the afternoon, okay? Remember that. Remember that. It's about the encounter, okay? It's about the encounter, okay? When we come back, we're going to bowl through some of these. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about invitation, which is good evangelization language, what works, what doesn't work, and why we do it. What are the things we're already doing that's really important, that work? And that conversation is very real because I had some of it last night. What is already happening that works well? And maybe how can we do some of those things better? That's an important conversation, okay?